Hello, welcome to Think and Grow Rich Daily Hangout. Hope you're well. My name's Sandy Levesque, here with a daily dose of prosperity consciousness from this amazing book, which was published just over 100 years ago, but actually is so relevant to today. In fact, I seem to meet an entrepreneur every single week who used this book to help change their way of seeing the world and their way of being in the world to really sort of go beyond how 98% of people live on this planet, with a lot of lack of consciousness, scarcity, worrying about money, never really having beyond sort of mediocre success. So if you want to go beyond that, then this group will help you do that. A lot of people are on summer holiday at the moment, but it's just me a lot of the time right now. If you're watching, because we have quite a few who are watching, and you'd like to actually come into the Hangout, I always say this because it's true, then I encourage you to just go a bit out of your comfort zone and click on the first link I post in the Facebook group and actually come into the Hangout, because you can read, you can share your experiences, things you found inspiring to do with whatever we're reading that day. So yesterday we read about specialized knowledge and how knowledge isn't power, it's only power when it's applied to something. Or if you don't have a specialized knowledge, how you can build a mastermind to plug the gaps where you don't have the knowledge that you need to do something. So we read about Henry Ford, the creator of the Ford car, who didn't have any schooling. He didn't even go to college. And yet he became, one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. He created something that we use today, a corporation that is still very strong today. And he did that because he was able to find people who knew what he needed. And he kept harmony between this group of people around him in much the same way that Andrew Carnegie did with his steel company around the same time. So, that was obviously a model that people used a lot in that time, where you had sort of one manager or business owner, and he had people around him who were his partners and part of his mastermind. So you can look at how you can do that with what you do. Do you have a mastermind? Do you have a mastermind partner? If you don't, and you can't think of anyone who would be a good fit, then I would ask the universe to help you find someone, because that will probably open more doors than you can imagine. That's how I found my mastermind partner. I kept asking that question, and then I just sort of let the idea pop into my mind one day as I was hiking. And when I asked the person, would you be up for being my mastermind buddy, they said yes straight away. And we've been masterminding now for over 7 months. So, that's one way to do it. So let's go to the book, and I'm just going to find where we were yesterday, which was somewhere around page 70. Cool. Okay, and if you have any questions or comments, then you can leave them in the Q&A. So let's just go to the book now. And apologies for the late start, by the way. I couldn't get any internet connection for some reason. So on now. Hopefully it will stay on. Okay. So we've been talking about when you learn something at home, when you get like night school, and you learn a new skill set, or you teach yourself something, basically. He was talking about how a lot of people think when you've gone to school, that's kind of the time in your life when you're learning the most. And actually, he says you can do that throughout your whole life. The true entrepreneur never stops learning, never stops learning new things, new ways of doing things, new perspectives that can make what they're doing even better. Okay, so here we go. They're on page 69. So there is one weakness in people for which there is no remedy. It is the universal weakness of lack of ambition. Persons, especially salaried people, who schedule their spare time to provide for home study, seldom remain at the bottom very long. Their action opens the way for the upward climb, removes many obstacles from their path, and gains the friendly interest of those who have the power to put them in the way of opportunity. The home study method of training is especially suited to the needs of employed people who find after leaving school that they must acquire additional knowledge, but they cannot spare the time to go back to school. The changed economic conditions prevailing since the Depression have made it necessary for thousands of people to find additional or new sources of income. For the majority of these, the solution to their problem may be found only by acquiring specialized knowledge. Many will be forced to change their occupations entirely. When a merchant finds that a certain line of merchandise is not selling, they usually supplant it with another that is in demand. The person whose business is that of marketing personal services must also be an efficient merchant. If their services do not bring adequate returns in one occupation, they must change to another, where broader opportunities are available. Stuart Austin Weir prepared himself as a construction engineer and followed this line of work until the Depression limited his market to where it did not give him the income he required. He took inventory of himself, decided to change his profession to law, went back to school and took special courses by which he prepared himself as a corporation lawyer. Despite the fact the Depression had not ended, he completed his training, passed the bar examination, and quickly built a lucrative law practice in Dallas, Texas. In fact, he is turning away clients just to keep the record straight and to anticipate the alibis of those who will say, "I couldn't go to school because I have a family to support," or "I'm too old." I will add the information that Mr. Weir was past 40 and married when he went back to school. Moreover, by carefully selecting highly specialized courses in colleges best prepared to teach the subjects chosen, Mr. Weir completed in 2 years the work for which the majority of law students require 4 years. It pays to know how to purchase knowledge. The person who stops studying merely because they have finished school is forever hopelessly doomed to mediocrity, no matter what may be their calling. The way of success is the way of continuous pursuit of knowledge. Let us consider a specific instance. During the Depression, a salesman in a grocery store found himself without a position. Having had some bookkeeping experience, he took a special course in accounting, familiarized himself with all the latest bookkeeping and office equipment, and went into business for himself. Starting with the grocer for whom he had formerly worked, he made contracts with more than 100 small merchants to keep their books at a very nominal fee. His idea was so practical that he soon found it necessary to set up a portable office in a light delivery truck, which he equipped with modern bookkeeping machinery. He now has a fleet of these bookkeeping offices on wheels and employs a large staff of assistants, thus providing small merchants with accounting service equal to the best that money can buy at a very nominal cost. Specialized knowledge plus imagination were the ingredients that went into this unique and successful business. Last year, the owner of that business paid an income tax of almost 10 times as much as was paid by the merchant for whom he worked when the Depression forced upon him a temporary adversity, which proved to be a blessing in disguise. The beginning of this successful business was an idea. Inasmuch as I had the privilege of supplying the unemployed salesman with that idea, I now assume the further privilege of suggesting another idea, which has within it the possibility of even greater income. Also the possibility of rendering useful service to thousands of people who badly need that service. The idea was suggested by the salesman who gave up selling and went into the business of keeping books on a wholesale basis. When the plan was suggested as a solution of his unemployment problem, he quickly exclaimed, "I like the idea, but I would not know how to turn it into cash." In other words, he complained he would not know how to market his bookkeeping knowledge after he acquired it. So that brought up another problem which had to be solved. With the aid of a young woman typist, clever hand lettering, and who could put the story together, a very attractive book was prepared describing the advantages of the new system of bookkeeping. The page was neatly typed and pasted in an ordinary scrapbook, which was used as a silent salesman, with which the story of this new business was so effectively told that its owners soon had more accounts than he could handle. There are thousands of people all over the country who need the services of a merchandising specialist, capable of preparing an attractive brief for use in marketing personal services. The aggregate annual income from such a service might easily exceed that received by the largest employment agency, and the benefits of this service might be made far greater to the purchaser than any to be obtained from an employment agency. The idea here described was born of necessity to bridge an emergency which had to be covered, but it did not merely stop by serving one person. The woman who created the idea has a keen imagination. She saw in her newly born brainchild the making of a new profession, one that is destined to render valuable service to thousands of people who need practical guidance in marketing personal services. Spurred to action by the instantaneous success of her prepared plan to market personal services, this energetic woman turned next to the solution of a similar problem for her son, who had just finished college but had been totally unable to find a market for his services. The plan she originated for his use was the finest specimen of merchandising of personal services I have ever seen. When the plan book had been completed, it contained nearly 50 pages of beautifully typed, properly organized information, telling the story of her son's native ability, schooling, personal experiences, and a great variety of other information, too extensive for description. The plan book also contained a complete description of the position her son desired, together with a marvelous word picture of the exact plan he would use in filling the position. The preparation of the plan book required several weeks' labor, during which time its creator sent her son to the public library almost daily to procure data needed in selling his services to best advantage. She sent him also to all the competitors of his prospective employer and gathered from them vital information concerning their business methods, which was of great value in the formation of the plan he intended to use in filling the position he sought. When the plan had been finished, it contained more than half a dozen very fine suggestions for the use and benefit of the prospective employer. The suggestions were put into use by the company. One may be inclined to ask, why go to all this trouble to secure a job? The answer is straight to the point. Also, it is dramatic because it deals with a subject which assumes the proportion of a tragedy with millions of men and women whose sole source of income is personal services. The answer is, doing a thing well never is trouble. The plan prepared by this woman for the benefit of her son helped him get the job for which he applied at the first interview at a salary fixed by himself. Moreover, and this too is important, the position did not require the young man to start at the bottom. He began as a junior executive at an executive salary. Why go to all this trouble, do you ask? Well, for one thing, the planned presentation of this young man's application for a position clipped off no less than 10 years of time he would have required to get to where he began, had he started at the bottom and worked his way up. The idea of starting at the bottom and working one's way up may appear to be sound, but the major objection to it is this. Too many of those who begin at the bottom never manage to lift their heads high enough to be seen by opportunity, so they remain at the bottom. It should be remembered also that the outlook from the bottom is not so very bright or encouraging. It has a tendency to kill off ambition. We call it getting into a rut, which means we accept our fate because we form the habit of daily routine, a habit that finally becomes so strong we cease to throw it off. And that is another reason why it pays to start one or two steps above the bottom. By doing so, one forms the habit of looking around, of observing how others get ahead, of seeing opportunity and embracing it without hesitation. Dan Halpin is a splendid example of what I mean. During his college days, he was manager of the famous 1930 National Championship Notre Dame football team when it was under the direction of the late Knut Rockne. Perhaps he was inspired by the great football coach to aim high and not mistake temporary defeat for failure, just as Andrew Carnegie, the great industrial leader, inspired his young business lieutenants to set high goals for themselves. At any rate, young Halpin finished college at a mighty unfavorable time when the Depression had made jobs scarce, so after a fling at investment banking and motion pictures, he took the first opening with a potential future he could find, selling electrical hearing aids on a commission basis. Anyone could start in that sort of job, and Halpin knew it, but it was enough to open the door of opportunity to him. For almost 2 years, he continued in a job not to his liking, and he would never have risen above that job if he had not done something about his dissatisfaction. He aimed first at the job of assistant sales manager of his company and got the job. That one step upward placed him high enough above the crowd to enable him to see still greater opportunity. Also, it placed him where opportunity could see him. He made such a fine record selling hearing aids that A. M. Andrews, chairman of the board of the Dictograph Products Company, a business competitor of the company for which Halpin worked, wanted to know something about that man, Dan Halpin, who was taking big sales away from the long-established Dictograph Company. He sent for Halpin. When the interview was over, Halpin was the new sales manager in charge of the Acousticon division. Then, to test young Halpin's mettle, Mr. Andrews went away to Florida for 3 months, leaving him to sink or swim in his new job. He did not sink. Knut Rockne's spirit of "all the world loves a winner and has no time for a loser" inspired him to put so much into his job that he was recently elected vice president of the company and general manager of the Acousticon and silent radio division, a job which most men would be proud to earn through 10 years of loyal effort. Halpin turned the trick in little more than 6 months. It is difficult to say whether Mr. Andrews or Mr. Halpin is more deserving of eulogy, for the reason that both showed evidence of having an abundance of that very rare quality known as imagination. Mr. Andrews deserves credit for seeing in young Halpin a go-getter of the highest order. Halpin deserves credit for refusing to compromise with life by accepting and keeping a job that he did not want, and that is one of the major points I am trying to emphasize through this entire philosophy, that we rise to high positions or remain at the bottom because of conditions we can control if we desire to control them. I am also trying to emphasize another point, namely that both success and failure are largely the results of habit. I have not the slightest doubt that Dan Halpin's close association with the greatest football coach America ever knew planted in his mind the same brand of desire to excel which made the Notre Dame football team world famous. Truly, there is something to the idea that hero worship is useful, provided one worships a winner. Halpin tells me that Rockne was one of the world's greatest leaders of men in all history. My belief in the theory that business associations are vital factors, both in failure and in success, was recently demonstrated when my son Blair was negotiating with Dan Halpin for a position. Mr. Halpin offered him a beginning salary of about one-half of what he could have gotten from a rival company. I brought parental pressure to bear and induced him to accept the place of Mr. Halpin because I believe that close association with one who refuses to compromise with circumstances he does not like is an asset that can never be measured in terms of money. The bottom is a monotonous, dreary, unprofitable place for any person. That is why I have taken the time to describe how lowly beginnings may be circumvented by proper planning. Also, that is why so much space has been devoted to a description of this new profession, created by a woman who was inspired to do a fine job of planning because she wanted her son to have a favorable break. With the changed conditions ushered in by the world economic collapse comes the need for newer and better ways of marketing personal services. It is hard to determine why someone had not previously discovered this stupendous need, in view of the fact that more money changes hands in return for personal services than any other purpose. The sum paid out monthly to people who work for wages and salaries is so huge that it runs into hundreds of millions, and the annual distribution amounts to billions. Perhaps some will find in the idea here briefly described the nucleus of the riches they desire. Ideas of much less merit have been the seedlings from which great fortunes have grown. Woolworth's 5 and 10 cent store idea, for example, had far less merit, but it still piled up a fortune for its creator. Those seeing opportunity lurking in a suggestion will find valuable aid in the chapter on organized planning. Incidentally, an efficient merchandiser of personal services would find a growing demand for his services wherever there are men and women who seek better markets for their services. By applying the mastermind principle, a few people with suitable talent could form an alliance and have a paying business very quickly. One would need to be a fair writer with a flair for advertising and selling, one handy at typing and hand lettering, and one should be a first-class business getter who would let the world know about the service. If one person possessed all these abilities, he might carry on the business alone until it outgrew him. The woman who prepared the personal services sales plan for her son now receives requests from all parts of the country for her cooperation in preparing similar plans for others who desire to market their personal services for more money. She has a staff of expert typists, artists, and writers who have the ability to dramatize the case history so effectively that one's personal services can be marketed for much more money than the prevailing wages for similar services. She is so confident of her ability that she accepts as the major portion of her fee a percentage of the increased pay she helps her clients to earn. It must not be supposed that her plan really consists of clever salesmanship, by which she helps men and women to demand and receive more money for the same services they formerly sold for less pay. She looks after the interests of the purchaser as well as the seller of personal services, and so prepares her plans that the employer receives full value for the additional money he pays. The method by which she accomplishes this astonishing result is a professional secret which she discloses to no one except her own clients. If you have the imagination and seek a more profitable outlet for your personal services, this suggestion may be the stimulus for which you have been searching. The idea is capable of yielding an income far greater than that of the average doctor, lawyer, or engineer whose education required several years in college. The idea is saleable to those seeking new positions in practically all positions calling for managerial or executive ability, and those desiring rearrangement of incomes in their present positions. Oh, we've nearly finished. There is no fixed price for sound ideas. Back of all ideas is specialized knowledge. Unfortunately, for those who do not find riches in abundance, specialized knowledge is more abundant and more easily acquired than ideas. Because of this very truth, there is a universal demand and an ever-increasing opportunity for the person capable of helping men and women to sell their personal services advantageously. Capability means imagination. The one quality needs to combine specialized knowledge with ideas in the form of organized plans designed to yield riches. If you have imagination, this chapter may present you with an idea sufficient to serve as the beginning of the riches you desire. Remember, the idea is the main thing. Specialized knowledge may be found just around the corner, just around any corner. So we're back. So we've just finished chapter 5. Specialized knowledge. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Sandy.
Hey, where are you? Welcome to the Hangout.
Thank you. What's happening?
Where are you?
Ireland.
Where are you? Well done, Anthony.
I'm in Ireland.
Oh, right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, welcome. We have another person who watches in Ireland as well, Geraldine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You look nice.
Sorry?
You look nice.
Thank you. So did you have anything you wanted to share about what we just read?
I don't know what you're on about, Sandy. I'm closed. I don't know what you're on about. What are you on about?
Okay, well, I mean, okay, well, I don't know if you've watched these Hangouts before, but basically it's a study group, so there's usually more people on, but because of the summer holidays, no, everyone's away. But basically, we've just been reading about specialized knowledge.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So basically, yeah, we've just been reading about specialized knowledge, and what, you might be listening to that reading and thinking, well, that was kind of, 1930. How can this apply to me? Sorry, I've just muted you, Anthony, because I'm not sure what I think you might have gone onto the wrong Hangout. But yeah, basically, how you can apply this to what you're doing right now is extremely relevant, because there's actually, if you think about it, I'm just reading a book called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, and a lot of what he talks about is how the main problem that people face when they have a business, whether they're an entrepreneur or they work for someone else, is obscurity, is people not knowing what you do or who you are or where you do it. And this is exactly the same thing that this woman in the example that Napoleon shared was addressing with the marketing of personal services. If you can learn how to market yourself, whether you're, no matter what you do, whether you're a charity or whether you're a small business or you're a solo entrepreneur, you need to be able to learn how to make it easy for people to find you. And if you can develop that skill set or help other people to do it, then, there'll be lots of people who find you who probably wouldn't have done before, because otherwise you're just kind of relying on word of mouth. So it's actually an old example that's still very relevant today. And I loved also what he shared about Derek Halpin working in that factory, who he shared about Andrew Carnegie, encouraging his guys that worked for him to really think big, to really have big goals and big targets. And this is something that also is really well described in the 10x rule. I'm just going to talk about this book a lot at the moment because I'm just listening to it for a second time. It's brilliant. It's a book about how to increase your results in everything you do by 10 times. And one of the things he talks about is having targets. He says the word goal. I prefer the word target because goal actually, it has all these weird old connotations because it used to mean jail. So sometimes when you think you're giving yourself a goal, it can actually feel like more of a jail, So target has a sort of lighter energy. So with a target, he says a lot of people targets that are really too low because they're trying to be realistic. But what happens is oftentimes we don't reach the initial target we set. That happens quite a lot, really. So when you don't reach a low target, you've kind of gone lower than if you've had a really high target and you were doing what you could to get that high target. Even if you don't hit it, at least you go high. It's like that saying, if you aim for the moon, at least you'll hit the stars. And so, and a Pitbull sang that in one of his songs. So this can apply here too. With what you're doing, whether you need specialized knowledge for it or not. Having a big target and then looking at where do I get the knowledge I need? Where can I get the education? What do I need to educate myself about? Because sometimes we think that we can just kind of play things along by ear or hope for the best and things will come to us when we need. And yes, that probably does happen. But it's also really useful to actually have a look at this and ask yourself, okay, what do I need to learn about? Who knows about this? Who's got genuine experience in this? Where can I get that information? And either learn it, do some courses or classes, or go to some kind of college and learn a degree or whatever, or find people who do have that information and bring them into your inner circle. For example, someone that I know, he's become a 7-figure internet guy, and he realized that he didn't really enjoy advertising, and he got someone who he pays a lot of money to do his advertising for him, and he's also become good at it because they work together. But they form this kind of mastermind where the advertising guy brought this brilliant skill set to this guy who was already doing very well to his business and literally 10 times it, because he was a 6-figure guy and he's now become a 7-figure guy in I think like a year. He just went, spent a lot of money in advertising, but he literally 10 times his results through bringing in specialized knowledge. So, no matter what you're doing, have a think about this and ask yourself, what else do I need to educate myself about? Where can I get this information? Who could I get it from? And what is the most relevant to what I'm doing? What's going to help my business really go where it needs to go and create the impact in the world that I know it can create? So I'm going to leave it at that for today. Hope you enjoyed today's Hangouts. And if you have any questions or comments about it, then just leave a message in the Facebook group. And thank you so much for watching. I know we have a lot of people who watch this after the fact, so hi to all of you. And hopefully I shall not be doing this solo for much longer. I have to say it's a lot more fun when there's more of you guys actually on the Hangout with me. So looking forward to having some of you back from your summer breaks. I shall see you soon. Have a great day and enjoy your morning. Goodbye. Bye.